Hi, this is the Markdown topic lecture. Let's get started. So, what do we want to do here? We want to let you know what Markdown is, why you want to use it, give you a feel of how popular and all the different places that you will be using it, why it's important to have this as a little skill under your belt, and show you how to do it. Okay? Some references, okay? The Common Mark 60-second syntax guide, great piece of information. It's got everything you need for Markdown in this class. We're going to use the first column here as our style that we use, okay? That's how we're going to be doing things, okay? Not this or not the or, but the first column. Okay, the Common Mark homepage is a group of folks that have cleaned up Markdown a bit into a standard, okay? There's online Markdown previewers, HTML converters that you can use, okay? There's a lot of ways. Now, so what is it? It's a plain text format. That means plain text, okay? Not something else, okay? Plain text for writing structured documents. And it's based roughly on formatting conventions used in old-fashioned email and something called Usenet. Okay. My take on this. Using raw HTML can be quite tedious for everyday writing or code documentation. And what I mean everyday writing, like writing up lots of stuff for reports and things. In addition, taking the time to insert HTML tags can make the already, I find writing difficult, painful task of writing even more horrible, okay? To sit there and worry about what you have to do to make an ordered list versus an unordered list, blah, blah, blah. This is why I use Markdown to generate the bulk of my HTML content, okay? So I do not just sit there writing HTML, okay? The bulk of my content is writing is done in Markdown, but not HTML graphical user interfaces and not page layout. Okay, that's not really what Markdown's for. Okay, it's good for code documentation, writing it. Who uses it? Well, it's used all over the place. Sites such as GitHub, Bitbucket, Diaspora, Stack Exchange, blah, 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 all these different places use variants of Markdown for documentation and for discussions between users. Okay, so knowing it will help you participate in the software community, the open source community, and most companies, I would think. Okay, more uses. Markdown is very popular with static site generators. If you're in my CS351 class, you will get hands-on with a static site generator in Markdown. Okay. No more worrying about what you see is what you get type of editors and such like that. Once you start using Markdown, you'll never go back. Why? Well, what about styling, Professor? We got CSS for that. Okay. This is for writing. Okay. GitHub renders the readme.md, which is a Markdown file for your repository. Okay. This is how you're going to be submitting all your homeworks this semester. So if I go to, here's a GitHub repo for my active learning app, my audience response system. The first thing you see, besides seeing a list of all these files and such like that, you see this documentation, and they say readme.md. Okay, this is not Markdown. This is rendered. Okay. This is rendered Markdown into HTML and displayed through the browser. If we go over to the README file here and click on it, okay, let's go take a look at it. Wait a second, Professor. It's showing it just the way it was before. Yes, it defaults to any Markdown file rendering it because they're used for documentation. To see what it really looks like, we click Raw. Oh, this is just some kind of text. Oh, weird markings in here. Oh, okay. So there's something to this. Oh, so pretty. Oh, so plain. Okay. So let's take a look. How to practice. There's going to be a bunch of different ways to practice. You can go and click this link and use this interactive app. Okay, that will render things and such like that. Try Common Mark. Okay, so you put in the Markdown in here. You see what it looks like here. Or if you want, you can grab the HTML that would have produced. Okay, if this is before we've talked about HTML class, don't worry about it. Okay, you'll see what it's going to look like. Okay, the other way is we're going to practice all the time in class. Is we're going to go to, whoops, wrong one. Classroom, go to networking, log in as Dr. B. All our messages and all the questions I send are going to be in Markdown. Okay, so we're going to do some practice right that way. Okay. So GitHub will automatically render your README file when you push it to the repo. Okay, so it's about simple text formatting. Okay, so if you want emphasis, which usually a browser translates into italics, you're going to use a star around things. So let's go take a look. Okay, let's make up a new file here. File new. Okay, we're going to save it. Okay, temp.md. Markdown, so my nice editor is going to recognize it's a Markdown file. So I can emphasize things. Now, good code editors have plugins for Markdown. This is brackets. I come over here and I see this little symbol. Click it. I get a window that shows me what the Markdown renders to. So I can emphasize things. Next, for bold, use 2 stars around the word or phrase. Really, Professor, it's that simple? What if I want to emphasize and make it strong? Okay, 3 stars around it. Yep. Okay, so you should want to get a code editor that can support an extension or has built-in Markdown rendering. Okay, it's just so useful and nice. Okay, so we can do bold and italic. What else can we do? Headings, right? We're going to break up our answers in our answer sheet into separate sections, right? Homework number 1. To do this, though, I need the # as the first character. If it's not, oh, well, this one seems impervious. Okay, if it's not, that can cause problems. Okay, this seems to be very good at not getting upset at me. Okay, other Markdown Markdown previewers might get more upset. Okay, you need to make sure that GitHub renders yours correctly. Question 2. A. This is my answer. Answer. Okay. Headings. Simple. Use it. We use a pound sign as the first character for a first level heading. Okay, so put it in the first character of a line, you need a space, and then your heading. Notice that this pound sign doesn't get confused with the other. Okay, so what about a paragraph? Whoops, I think I forgot even to mention paragraphs. Paragraphs are simple. Okay, if you want a paragraph, this is more of the same, still more. Notice all these are on the same line. However, if I give a blank line, this is a new paragraph. Woohoo! Okay. That's why it's very helpful to have a good previewer. Okay. So all these, even though I put a new line here, still, that's not spelled right. Okay. So, what if I need to put in a link? Let's see how popular. Let's look at NPM, the repository of all open source, the biggest repository of open source library packages in the world. These are all JavaScript primarily. Okay. Here's one. There's a bunch of different packages that will turn your Markdown into HTML or other things. This is one. This happens to be about popular. Look at the number of weekly downloads. This is per week. 3,374,335. You think a few people are using this? That's downloads. You don't have to keep downloading it to use it. That's not per use. That's downloads. Okay. Very, very popular. So what if I want to send people to that link? I got to make a copy of that link. Let's put in a link here. Okay. Here is a link to, what was this thing called? Marked. Or I could say the marked library. What I put in here is up to me. Okay. What I put over here is the URL. So this gets turned into an A tag. Look at that, right there. And look at that. It's clickable. Look at that. It takes me to the page I already had open. Okay. Much easier to quickly set up URLs. Okay, what else might we want to do? Markdown images. All the time in our homework we need images. Okay, so let's save that. Let's look at the README for our homework in progress. Okay, a screenshot of, here is an example I messed with our homework solutions. Okay, and so this was homework N, question 1, 1A, 1B. See, we can just watch it change. We add a screenshot. How do we do it? I go, it looks like a link, but the only difference is you put an exclamation mark in front of it. You put the name. You don't have to use quotes around this. Okay, this is a relative link to the file. Where's this file sitting? Oh, in my solutions directory, I have an images directory. So here's the README. I want to refer to an image down in the image directory, so I go images / this is some image that I did. Okay, now caution. Oh, Windows doesn't care. Windows doesn't care about capitalization in these file names and in extensions. GitHub does. So if you've got a lowercase extension in your file name and they use uppercase here or the opposite, it will work fine on Windows because Windows doesn't care about this thing. GitHub, being a Linux-based system, does. Oopsies. So always check that not only that your preview locally works, but your external way. When you visit your repo and look at the README, it works. Because that's what I'm grading. Me and the grader are going to be grading you on. Okay? So if the image doesn't show up at GitHub, that's what matters. Okay? And this is a classic thing. The other thing is, don't have spaces in these names of your screenshots. Get rid of them, and don't have special characters. I saw something really weird happen one time when somebody had a bunch of $signs in the special characters. Okay? Because we all know that, sorry, not $signs, but pound signs. We all know that that's used for, we will be learning, that's used for IDs. The hashtags are used for IDs within HTML documents, refers to them in various ways, and it's part of the fragment part of the URL. You don't have hashtags in your file names. Take them out after you save them if your operating system automatically does that. Okay, so now we know how to put links and images in there. Okay, we got headings, we got emphasis and strong, we got italics and bolds and bold italics, links, images. What else do we need? Oh, lists are really easy. Okay, so if I want to make a list, to make a bullet list, okay, so this is going to be Markdown. First things first, but this isn't an ordered list. All we do is put a star, space, and we start at this first character and we start making a list. If we want an ordered list, we can go, let's get to order 1. First things first. You know, but I always have this problem where I forget and put things in the wrong order. And shouldn't the computer do the counting? You can just give it whatever numbers you like here. It will figure out that you want a number, and it will order things because it's an ordered list. Second things here. Third things to go here. Okay? So, in our messaging for our class, with our in-class app, we're going to be using Markdown. This is the format actually, okay? Cool. So now we have lists. Lists are easy. Easier, way easier than HTML. You don't have to use, as we'll see when we learn HTML, coming up right after this. Okay, paragraphs and block quotes. Okay, new paragraph, skipping a line. Block quote. What does a block quote look like? Okay, block quote. We need a quote. What's a quote? E equals M. No. The Lux of the delight. How does that show up? Block quotes. Block quotes. Homework, 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 homework. This is Latin and oops. I don't understand it. Okay, now if I wanted to see how block quotes look a little bit more, I can make it smaller and see that. Let's see. It puts this little line bar here. What is this being done by? This is being done by the styling. Okay, so block quotes can look different anywhere you want, but if you're grabbing a description from somebody else, you need to give them attribution. Otherwise, that's copyright infringement or plagiarism. Okay, put it in a block quote. This gets translated into there's an actual HTML element for block quoting things. Okay. What else? What else? One of our biggest uses is code highlighting. Okay. We want nice syntax highlighted code. Okay. So I'm going to show you some HTML. Okay. Here's some HTML. I'm going to use 3 backticks. For me, the backticks are way up in the left corner, top left corner-ish of my keyboard. This isn't a single quote, okay? It's a backtick, okay? So if I use single set of backticks, it gives me nice looking inline code like this, okay? For a block of code with syntax highlighting, I use 3 backticks starting on the very first character of the line. 3 backticks, no space. Then I tell it the code type, in this case HTML. Then I put the code in there and end the block with 3 backticks. That'll give us something like this. Okay. So when we're throwing around code in class, so let me take a copy of this. Let's go to C source. Okay, let's go up here. Wow, what happened? Some HTML code, syntax. This didn't work, did it? Oh, because one other thing I forgot to tell you, you're allowed to put HTML straight into Markdown. Okay, there's a few constraints. You got to make sure it's not packed too tightly with the rest of the white Markdown. But what I need to do is give it 3 backticks. Ooh, look at that! Look at that! Look at that! Did you see this down here? What's going on down here? Line numberings, syntax highlighting. Oh yeah, we want our code to look nice. You're gonna want to have things look very nice. Okay, why? So let's see. Let's go to. Okay, see. Web. Okay. So here we're at we're using a nice open source project. Okay, we really like it, but we think we found a bug. Okay, we have read up, okay, through their issues list and stuff like that, and done some checking around, and we can't find anybody else who's had that bug. Okay, we do our homework first. So we go over to their issues area, and we want to open up a new issue. Okay, so I think I found a problem. Okay, so now you're going to write up stuff. The problem. Okay, you're going to use nice explanation in Markdown. Okay, and you're going to find the smallest piece of code that you can that demonstrates the problem. The code is, well, I don't want to have to write some new code, so I'm going to go over here, steal some code from an example from the end of the homework. So send, okay. What I do is I don't give them a screenshot of my code because that's worthless for them because they can't copy and paste a screenshot. Screenshots of code aren't very helpful. Okay, screenshots of an error message, maybe. Okay, but I give them that code using nice Markdown syntax. So what they get to see is nice syntax highlighted code that, yes, they can copy. Okay, and such like that. This proves to them that you're not a noob. You are trying to be helpful. But if you give them a huge amount of code and say, what's wrong with my code, they're not going to respond. Okay, so notice preview, Markdown, preview. Okay, The Markdown we're learning is needed for you to communicate and work within the open source community. But I'm not going to work in the open source community. I'm going to have a paid job. Guess what? You're going to be using all these open source tools and open source libraries. Okay? You want to be able to play nice with everybody. Okay. Code highlighting. Okay. That's all we need for class. Okay? But the power goes beyond that. Where else might you use this? If you're a data science person, you may be using Jupyter notebooks. Okay? You may use them in your class. You might have elaborate, long Jupyter notebooks. This is when I was working for an AR, augmented reality startup. Okay? Here's this big, long Jupyter notebook. Okay? Put in a bunch of documentation. Why did we have so much documentation? Because things were confusing. We had to deal with like 6 different coordinate systems. Okay? Very confusing. Okay? So here's mathematical stuff and things like that. But when you put in documentation, let's double click, this is what you're putting in raw. It's just Markdown. Okay? Yes, you can put images in it. It's just Markdown. Oh, Markdown's allowed to have regular HTML in it. Okay? So that's one place. Other place, so Jupyter Notebooks, part of the data scientist thing. What about preparing slideshows? Oh, yeah, all the slideshows I make for you, all these slides I make, they're not PowerPoint. They're not even PowerPoint turned into HTML. They start from Markdown. Then I use a tool to help me, something called Pandoc. Okay, and what it does is it takes plain Markdown, like in a certain format, and helps turn it into, I use the Reveal.js slideshow format, okay? So it puts it in that format for me, and so I don't even have to do, I can always go back and put raw HTML in, okay? The HTML presentation framework, okay? But there are a bunch of tools, okay, to help you. So if it's not clear by now, Markdown is your friend. Get used to it. We're going to be using it throughout class. Be on the lookout for little hiccups. Always preview at GitHub how your Markdown renders, because there can be differences between what your previewer and your editor does. It may be more lenient, like mine here, than what happens up at GitHub. And what you're turning into me is what I can see at GitHub. Okay? Sounds good.